The Secret Doctrine by Elena Petrovna Blavatsky, a facsimile of the original edition of 1888, printed by the Cunningham Press, Alhambra, California. Book 2, Part 1, Anthropogenesis. Stanzas translated with commentaries from the Secret Book of John. First, Rune 1 from the Kalevala. In primeval times, a maiden, beauteous daughter of the ether, passed for ages her existence in the great expanse of heaven. 700 years she wandered, 700 years she labored, ere her firstborn was delivered. Ere a beauteous duck descending hastens toward the water-mother. Lightly on the knee she settles, finds a nesting place befitting, where to lay her eggs in safety, lays her eggs within at pleasure. 6, the golden eggs, she lays them, then a 7th, an egg of iron. From the Kalevala, Rune 1. Anthropogenesis in the secret volume, verbatim extracts. Note, only 49 shlokas out of several hundred are here given. Not every verse is translated verbatim. A periphrasis is sometimes used for the sake of clearness and intelligibility, where a literal translation would be quite unintelligible. End of note. Stanza 1. Beginnings of sentient life. Note. All the words and sentences placed in brackets in the stanzas and commentaries are the writer's. In some places they may be incomplete and even inadequate from the Hindu standpoint, but in the meaning attached to them in trans-Himalayan esotericism they are correct. In every case the writer takes any blame upon herself. Having never claimed personal infallibility, that which is given on her own authority may leave much to be desired in the very abstruse cases where too deep metaphysic is involved. The teaching is offered as it is understood, and as there are 7 keys of interpretation to every symbol and allegory, that which may not fit a meaning, say from the psychological or astronomical aspect, will be found quite correct from the physical or metaphysical. End of note. Subsections. 1. The law or spirit of the earth. 2. Invocation of the earth to the sun. 3. What the sun answers. 4. Transformation of the earth. 1. The law. Law is the ancient word in trans-Himalayan regions for spirit, any celestial or superhuman being, and it covers the whole series of heavenly hierarchies from archangel to Dhyani down to an angel of darkness or terrestrial spirit, which turns the 4th globe or our earth, is servant to the last of the 7, the planetary spirits. This expression shows in plain language that the spirit guardians of our globe, which is the 4th in the chain, is subordinate to the chief spirit, or god, of the 7 planetary genii, or spirits. As already explained, the ancients had in their Kyriel of gods 7 chief mystery gods, whose chief was exoterically the visible sun, or the 8th, and esoterically the 2nd logos, the demiurge. The 7, who have now become the 7 eyes of the Lord in the Christian religion, were the regents of the 7 chief planets. But these were not reckoned according to the enumeration devised later by people who had forgotten or who had an inadequate notion of the real mysteries, and included neither the sun, the moon, nor the earth. The sun was the chief exoterically of the 12 great gods or zodiacal constellations, and esoterically the Messiah, the Christos, the subject anointed by the great breath or by the One, surrounded by his 12 subordinate powers, also subordinate in turn to each of the 7 mystery gods of the planets. The 7 higher make the 7 laws create the world, states a commentary, which means that our earth, leaving aside the rest, was created or fashioned by terrestrial spirits, the regents being simply the supervisors. This is the first germ, the seed of that which grew later into the tree of astrology and astrolatry. The higher ones were the cosmocreatores, the fabricators of our solar system. This is borne out by all the ancient cosmogonies. that of Hermes, of the Chaldees, of the Aryans, of the Egyptians, and even of the Jews. Heaven's belt, the signs of the zodiac, the sacred animals, are as much the Bnei Achim, sons of the gods or the Elohim, as the spirits of the earth, but they are prior to them. Soma and Sin, Isis and Diana, are all lunar gods or goddesses, called the fathers and mothers of our earth, which is subordinate to them. But these, in their turn, are subordinate to their fathers and mothers, the latter interchangeable and varying with each nation, the gods and their planets such as Jupiter, Saturn, Bel, Brihaspati, etc. They who revolve, driving their chariots around their Lord, the one eye, Lokachaksup, of our world. His breath gives life to the seven, gives light to the planets. It gave life to the first. His breath gave life to the seven refers as much to the sun, who gives life to the planets, as to the High One, the spiritual Sun, who gives life to the whole cosmos. The astronomical and astrological keys opening the gate leading to the mysteries of theogony can be found only in the later glossaries which accompany the stanzas. In the apocalyptic slokas of the archaic records, the language is as symbolic, if less mythical, than in the Puranas. Without the help of the later commentaries, compiled by generations of adepts, it would be impossible to understand the meaning correctly. In the ancient cosmogonies, the visible and the invisible worlds are the double links of one and the same chain. As the invisible Logos, with its 7 hierarchies, represented or personified each by its chief angel or rector, form one power, the inner and the invisible. So, in the world of forms, the sun and the 7 chief planets constitute the visible and active potency, the latter hierarchy being, so to speak, the visible and objective Logos of the invisible and, except in the lowest grades, ever subjective angels. Thus, to anticipate a little by way of illustration, every race in its evolution is said to be born under the direct influence of one of the planets. Race is the first receiving its breath of life from the sun, as will be seen later on, while the third humanity, those who fell into generation or from androgynes became separate entities, one male and the other female, are said to be under the direct influence of Venus, the little sun in which the solar orb stores his light. The summation of the stanzas in Book 1 showed the genesis of gods and men taking rise in and from one and the same point, which is the one universal, immutable, eternal, and absolute unity. Note, according to Dr. A. Wilder's learned definition, Genesis is not generation, but a coming out of the eternal into the cosmos and time, a coming from esse into existere, or from beingness into being, as a theosophist would say. End of note. In its primary manifested aspect, we have seen it become one, in the sphere of objectivity and physics, primordial substance and force, centripetal and centrifugal, positive and negative, male and female, etc., etc. 2, in the world of metaphysics, the spirit of the universe or cosmic ideation, called by some the Logos. This Logos is the apex of the Pythagorean triangle. When the triangle is complete, it becomes the tetractis, or the triangle in the square, and is the dual symbol of the 4-lettered tetragrammaton in the manifested cosmos, and of its radical triple ray in the unmanifested, or its noumenon. Put more metaphysically, the classification given here of cosmic ultimates is more one of convenience than of absolute philosophical accuracy. At the commencement of a great Manvantara, Parabrahm manifests as Mula Prakriti and then as the Logos. This Logos is equivalent to the unconscious universal mind, etc., of Western pantheists. It constitutes the basis of the subject side of manifested being, and is the source of all manifestations of individual consciousness. Mula Prakriti, or the primordial cosmic substance, is the foundation of the object side of things, the basis of all objective evolution and cosmogenesis. Force, then, does not emerge with primordial substance from parabrahmic latency. It is the transformation into energy of the supraconscious thought of the Logos, infused, so to speak, into the objectivation of the latter out of potential latency in the one reality. Hence spring the wondrous laws of matter. Hence the primal impress, so vainly discussed by Bishop Temple. Force thus is not synchronous with the first objectivation of Mula Prakriti, but as, apart from it, the latter is absolutely and necessarily inert, a mere abstraction, it is unnecessary to weave too fine a cobweb of subtleties as to the order of succession of the cosmic ultimates. Force succeeds Mula Prakriti, but minus force, Mula Prakriti is for all practical intents and purpose non-existent. Note: for a clear explanation of the origins as contained in the esotericism of the Bhagavad Gita, see the notes thereon published in the Theosophist for February, March, and June 1887, Madras. End of note. The quote heavenly man, unquote, Tetragrammaton, who is the protogonos, Tikkun, the firstborn from the passive deity and the first manifestation of that deity's shadow, is the universal form and idea which engenders the manifested Logos, Adam Kadmon, or the four-lettered symbol in the Kabbalah of the universe itself, also called the second Logos. The second springs from the first and develops a third triangle, from the last of which, the lower host of angels, men, are generated. It is with this third aspect that we shall deal at present. The reader must bear in mind that there is a great difference between the Logos and the Demiurgos, for one is spirit and the other is soul, or as Dr. Wilder has it, Dianoia and Logos are synonymous, nous being superior and closely in affinity with tuagatoi, one being the superior apprehending, the other the comprehending, one noetic and the other phrenic. Unquote. Moreover, man was regarded in several systems as the third Logos. The esoteric meaning of the word logos, speech or word, verbum, is the rendering in objective expression, as in a photograph, of the concealed thought. The logos is the mirror reflecting divine mind, and the universe is the mirror of the logos, though the latter is the esse of that universe. As the logos reflects all in the universe of pleroma, so man reflects in himself all that he sees and finds in his universe, the earth. It is the three heads of the Kabbalah, unum intra alterum et alterum super alterum, from Zohar, Ida, Sutta 7. Every universe, world or planet has its own logos, says the Doctrine. The sun was always called by the Egyptians the eye of Osiris, and was himself the logos, the first begotten or light made manifest to the world, which is the mind and divine intellect of the concealed. It is only by the sevenfold ray of this light that we can become cognizant of the Logos through the demiurge, regarding the latter as the creator of our planet and everything pertaining to it, and the former as the guiding force of that creator, good and bad at the same time, the origin of good and the origin of evil. This, quote, creator, unquote, is neither good nor bad per se, but its differentiated aspects in nature make it assume one or the other character. With the invisible and the unknown universes disseminated through space, none of the sun gods had anything to do. The idea is expressed very clearly in the Book of Hermes and in every ancient folklore. It is symbolized generally by the dragon and the serpent, the dragon of good and the serpent of evil, represented on earth by the right and the left hand magic. In the epic poem of Finland, the Kalevala, the origin of the serpent of evil is given. It is born from the spittle of Suyatar, and endowed with a living soul by the principle of evil, Hisi. The strife is described between the two, the thing of evil, the serpent or sorcerer, and Ahti, the dragon, magic Lemminkainen. The latter is one of the 7 sons of Ilmatar, the virgin, daughter of the air, she who fell from heaven into the sea before creation, that is, spirit transformed into the matter of senses life. There is a world of meaning and occult thought in these few lines, admirably rendered by Dr. J. M. Crawford of Cincinnati, The hero Lemminkainen, the good magician, quote, used the wall with might of magic, breaks the palisade in pieces, used to atoms 7 pickets, chops the serpent wall to fragments. When the monster, little heeding, pounces with his mouth of venom at the head of Lemminkainen, but the hero, quick recalling, speaks the master words of knowledge, words that came from distant ages, words his ancestors had taught him, unquote. The stanza continued. They are all dragons of wisdom, adds the commentary. In China, the men of Fuji, or the heavenly man, are called the 12 Qian-Yuan, the 12 hierarchies of deities or angels with human faces and dragon bodies, the dragon standing for divine wisdom or spirit, and they create men by incarnating themselves in 7 figures of clay, earth and water, made in the shape of those Qian-Yuan, a third allegory. Compare the symbols of the Banzis. Note: it has been repeatedly stated that the serpent is the symbol of wisdom and of occult knowledge. The serpent has been connected with the god of wisdom from the earliest times of which we have any historical notice, writes Stanislav Wake. This animal was the special symbol of Tot or Taut, and of all those gods, such as Hermes, within brackets question mark, and Seth, who can be connected with him. This is also the primitive Chaldean triad Hea or Hua. According to Sir Henry Rawlinson, the most important titles of this deity refer to his functions as the source of all knowledge and science. Not only is he the intelligent fish, but his name may be read as signifying both life and a serpent, meaning an initiated adept. And he may be considered as figured by the great serpent, which occupies so conspicuous a place among the symbols of their gods on the black stones recording Babylonian benefactions. Aesculapius, Serapis, Pluto, Khnum, and Kneph are all deities with the attributes of the serpent. Says Dupuy, they are all healers, givers of health, spiritual and physical, and of enlightenment. The crown formed of an asp, the Thermutis, belongs to Isis, goddess of life and healing. The Upanishads have a treatise on the science of serpents, in other words, the science of occult knowledge, and the Nagas of the exoteric Buddhist are not the fabulous creatures of the nature of serpents, beings superior to men and the protectors of the law of Buddha, as Schlagentveit believed, but real living men, some superior to men by virtue of their occult knowledge, and the protectors of Buddha's law, inasmuch as they interpret his metaphysical tenets correctly, others inferior morally as being black magicians. Therefore it is truly declared that Gautama Buddha is said to have taught them a more philosophical religious system than to men who were not sufficiently advanced to understand it at the time of his appearance. Schlagentveit's Tibetan Buddhism. End of note. The 12 asses of the Scandinavian Eddas do the same. In the secret catechism of the Druses of Syria, a legend which is repeated word for word by the oldest tribes about and around the Euphrates, men were created by the sons of God, descending on earth, where, after culling 7 mandragoras, they animated these roots, which became forthwith men. Note: the mandragora is the mandrake of the Bible, of Rachel and Leah. They are the roots of a plant, fleshy, hairy, and forked below, representing roughly the limbs of a man, the body, and even a head. Its magical and mysterious properties have been proclaimed in fable and play from the most archaic ages, from Rachel and Leah, who indulged in witchcraft with them, down to Shakespeare, who speaks of shrieking. Like mandrakes torn out of the earth, that living mortals, hearing them, run mad. The mandragora was the magic plant par excellence. These roots, without any stalk, and with large leaves growing out of the head of the root like a gigantic crop of hair, present little similitude to man when found in Spain, Italy, Asia Minor or Syria, but on the Isle of Candia and in Carmania near the city of Adan they have a wonderfully human form, being very highly prized as amulets. They are also worn by women as a charm against sterility and for other purposes. They are especially effective in black magic. End of note. All these allegories point to one and the same origin, to the dual and the triple nature of man, dual as male and female, triple as being of spiritual and psychic essence within and of material fabric without. Next is verse 2 of stanza 1.